What? Why do we...
Right there. There you go.
Okay.
All right. That is one of the secrets of a professional podcast. A lot of the less professional podcasts, they don't do it to a click. So they don't know that they're keeping that tempo like right. That's the secret for us is we've got the tempo of the podcast is just dialed, like it's locked.
I don't even know what to say.
You're tired. You've been working on songwriting so hard.
I have. That's been a lot of the last couple of weeks, especially today and yesterday. I've been doing a deep dive on who I am and what I think about things.
Yeah, which is part of writing, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
Well, not I guess. It for sure is.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be, I suppose. You could be like the Viagra Boys and write that song called Sports and just list off sports.
Yeah, which we should talk about.
You should check out the Viagra Boys, the song Sports.
It is pretty funny.
Basketball, baseball. Just do that over a track.
Yeah,
we're actually really good.
We're working way too hard.
Oh my gosh.
You have been working. You've been deep diving.
I've been deep diving and I haven't been writing in a while, so I'm very out of practice.
Yeah.
But so I mentioned on a previous podcast that we were trying a new way of writing together, which was I was dumping words into files and sending them your way and hoping you'd make music out of them.
Right.
Well, there are two problems with that. First of all, you haven't had the time or energy to do so for the last couple of weeks. And second, now that I look back at what I sent, there's nothing there. There's nothing to work with. I didn't send you anything usable. So
I'm not agreeing. I'm just, I'm just hearing you.
That's what I think about it.
Yeah.
We have so many things that have happened the last couple of weeks since we last recorded.
That was the segue I was making.
Okay. I stole your segue.
Not only have you been doing lots of songwriting, we've had just an incredibly busy couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know if we can go in order.
Let's not worry about that. It's not
even go in order.
How about this? Oh, what? Were we going to say something?
Your week of Muse.
My week of Muse?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm wearing a Muse t-shirt for those who are not watching the YouTube video. I went to see Muse at the Pepsi Center. Wait, at Ball Arena now. Man, talk about production levels. Holy moly. There was so much fire and so many lights and these big constructions behind the stage and a huge a catwalk that went way out into the GA area, or not GA, but the floor area.
The floor, yeah.
Yeah, obviously not GA. Great show. I mean, I don't have any show analysis to do, really. I was just absorbed in the production. I mean, cannons of confetti and cannons of streamers, and it was just like a shock and awe sort of show.
I was talking to somebody relating your observations to them, and their guess was they brought up they were wondering if maybe the kind of like how EDM shows are some of the best electronic dance music shows are some of the best selling shows in the world now. I mean, those shows sell amazingly, and those shows are all about the shock and awe, volume of the music, the bass drops, the lights, the 3D LED screens and the pyro and the whole thing. And it's supposed to be like a roller coaster ride. It's not really about like listening to the music. It's just supposed to be like a full on sensory experience. And I wonder if some of the bigger touring acts, Muse unquestionably as big as anybody, aren't, responding to that a little bit. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not, but you said it was just unbelievable production.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a great show.
Yeah.
Too. Maybe I was too taken by the production to really take notes. I tried to start taking notes on my phone so that I could talk about the show on the podcast. And I only wrote down like 3 things, like Hysteria was second. The
which is like, that's another, it's like Phoenix, like that's putting it.
Yeah. And I don't even remember what else I wrote down. It was tiny notes. So not much to say about that. Although I did start listening to a lot more Muse this week because I loved the show and because I feel like my head is in Muse space as far as their message and their power, like the style of their music.
Right.
And I'm really connecting with Muse right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's so cool. Yeah.
So you said week of Muse. Yes, I also played at the Muse Performance Center. No, the Muse Performance Space is what it's called.
In Lafayette?
Twice in Lafayette.
Yeah.
So first I played bass with Pamela Makala's band. Mm-hmm. Great show.
And that went well, right?
Yeah, it went well. Went
Yeah.
great. Except, good thing I know how to run sound.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we...
Right?
Yeah.
We need to do a little short on this. But there was someone hired to run sound, but she admitted up front she did not know what she was doing.
Right.
She's like, Claire recorded a video for me on how to use the soundboard. And I was like, all right, thanks for being up front. I'm going to jump in and do sound check. I mean... Neither she nor I knew before we started, like, which cable's going where, how, like, I'd never seen a soundboard that looked like that before.
Right.
It didn't take long to figure out, honestly. You know,
Yeah, we had a great conversation about it. If
Yeah.
you know what the knobs do,
Yeah.
all you've got to do is find the knobs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. There was only one thing I couldn't figure out, and that was how to apply reverb. I thought I found the control. I thought that I was setting it correctly. Couldn't make it happen. Finally, Claire, the owner, came over to the venue, and she couldn't figure it out either. She's like, it always works this way. It's never had to work a different way. And so I was like, I'm vindicated. Like, even the owner of the soundboard doesn't know what's going on.
Right. But having those core concepts of what knobs do and gosh, it's part of, I guess you're edging towards our live sound class that we're releasing as a video course. One of the things I talk about in that course is half of running live sound is just keeping your head.
Right.
It's not that hard to figure out. Just keep your head. Don't get freaked out. Don't start thinking it's crazy magic stuff.
Yeah.
The odds that it's something you don't know about, like some layers thing that the board is using.
Pretty low chance of that.
That's less than 1% chance that's what it is. And you had a problem with the guitar, and it's what I say in the class. Check for the dumbest thing first, because it's probably that.
Yeah, we had switched the channel for the guitar because our guitar for Pamela's band was going direct from a modeling amp, and the guitar for the opener was an acoustic going through a DI. So we'd swapped out the cables. And so when we swapped back, we forgot. I mean, I took off the phantom power that he needed on his vocal. I made a couple of other level changes that we needed to go back to, but I forgot to swap the cable back. So, we got up to start playing, and there was no guitar of our guitarist in the house or anywhere.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my gosh, what setting is it? What setting is it? And then I'm like, let me look at the back of the board.
take a step back.
Something obvious. It's got to be something obvious.
It so often is that, and that's one of the things I teach in that course is troubleshooting, and most of troubleshooting is just going like, wait,
Power
stay calm,
on, cable in.
Start looking at the most basic things first, because so often it's just, I forgot to plug that back in, or I left that muted. I muted it for a second.
Yeah.
And I left it muted, and now I'm checking every possible thing.
You go deep into the menu.
Yanking cables, and I'm this and that, and it's like, no, you had it muted. That's such a good lesson about sound, and I was so proud of you that you had those concepts, and you just kept your head and stayed calm. And
I'm so glad that I had them too.
Anyway,
so that was one of my two shows.
That was one of the Muse shows.
So we had seeing the Muse, we had playing with Pamela at the Muse, and then last night I sang with Cody Qualls at the Muse performance space also. So this was his Broadway and beyond. It was Broadway and Billboard and beyond show.
Okay.
So it was one man, one piano. So Brian Stacks on keys and Cody on vocals.
Yeah.
And then 2/3 of the way through the show, he's like, I lied. There's going to be one more voice. And he called me up, and I sang, what's the first one? Uncomfortable with him, which is
an original.
Yeah. And then sang The Prayer with him.
Which, who is that by again? Is that Bocelli?
That's who sang it, and I don't know who wrote it. And Celine Dion. So I sing the Celine Dion part. We got a standing ovation after that song. We knocked it out of the park.
Which, by the way, I heard that was a sold-out show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very, very cool.
That's impressive.
I mean, for one guy.
I know. For one guy and just a voice and piano show.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was phenomenal. He just had the audience in the palm of his hand from the beginning. Some good audience participation moments, some real heartfelt moments, a good variety of emotional experiences throughout the show. It was great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And gosh, Brian Stax.
Oh man, that guy's a
we
musical native.
I know.
We were talking this morning about how he, beyond any other musician you or I have met, speaks music natively.
Yeah, he's
he did this whole show. Okay, they had one rehearsal, an hour and a half of music that Brian, I don't think most of it Brian had played before. It's like some Broadway stuff. No charts, no notes, totally from memory.
Yeah.
It's just like a language that he doesn't even have to think to speak. It's pretty crazy.
I know we talked about it on the podcast, but I would love to know what's going on in his head because it is completely unfair.
I know.
That he can do what he does. Yeah. But it's amazing. Another amazing person we're so lucky to play with.
Yeah.
But that was great. Cody and Brian selling out the Muse in Lafayette.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We also had the Buffalo Roast with Petty Nicks. I feel like we were just talking about that on the podcast. Oh, we were because we were there with Cody.
Right. Yeah.
So on a recent podcast, we were talking about David and Marco and all the lovely people at Buffalo Rose. But we were there with Petty Nicks, and it was, man, that was
We pre-sold, what, did I say 400 or 500? I think we pre-sold over 400 tickets. And there were probably
well over 4, yeah.
I think there were 500 people there. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
Probably our best at the Buffalo Rose.
In some ways, I mean, that crowd was hot.
Yeah.
Loud. It's getting crazy when we end songs, and it is just deafening. Like that band is all pros, so like it's not loud on stage, but it's a band playing on stage, so it's not quiet. It's not like a loud band, but it's a healthy volume, and that doesn't bother you. But when we end songs, it is ear splitting sometimes, like. And especially some of the big moments, like in Rhiannon, and there's the thing. I wind up on the other side of the stage, and I'm like pointing at you at the end of Rhiannon, and I'm like trying not to wince.
Really? I felt it. Like I was ready to go. It's been a little while since we've done a show, like a few weeks maybe, and I had some pent up Petty Nicks energy, and this time it came out. Oh, I was telling you after the show. It came out in a couple of ways. One is, normally I spend the first couple of songs kind of calibrating myself. I'm listening to my voice, making sure I'm sounding like Stevie tonight, because obviously that's not my natural voice. Right. I'm kind of like making sure I'm on pitch, making sure my voice is working for me tonight. So I'm very thinky the first few songs. And this time I came out and I was like, girl, you've been doing this for 7 years. I think you got it by now. And I just gave myself permission to relax right away.
That is so interesting.
Yeah. Same songs. It's the same songs. You don't have to be so precious about it. Like you got it. So I felt more relaxed right off the bat. And then the other thing, I don't remember if I told you this. I put more effort into my physical expression of, I guess I'll call it choreography. I mean, it's not like we have choreography, but I do a lot of spinning and some posing and stuff. And way back when, I worked with a choreographer on a project, and she was telling me to like give it more juice. Like it's the difference between like making a motion and like like taking it to the extreme, your elbow all the way out, or the little extra in your hip, or whatever it is. Yeah. And I was like, I don't think I've been fulfilling my potential as a spinning Stevie Nicks lately. And so I just like, I just like took my arms a little higher. I arched my back a little more. I stood up a little taller. I took the spins a little farther, Everything was just had a little more juice to it. Yeah. And I bet if I go back and watch that video, it's going to be a noticeable difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I of course work on with people that I coach and so on is well, I always say it as making a meal out of something. Like you could just do it, or you could make a meal out of it. Like you could make it a whole thing.
Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
like even the small things. I mean, usually I would say that about something bigger like spinning, where it's like you don't just spin. Like make a meal out of it. Like make it a satisfying, full experience type thing. But it is even in those little, you know, just the little motions.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just put some, you know, put a little
Yeah.
sauce on it. Yeah.
Sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
your word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I felt maybe it was directly related to you being the way you were kind of amped up. I felt I didn't put much into that show. I mean,
yeah.
I played just fine, and it's a much smaller stage. Like that stage, you think it's bigger than it is. Amazing venue, whatever, 800 capacity or whatever it is. But the stage, once you've got the drums and the everything on it, is not huge. So you don't need to take up that much space, and I was just really feeling that mode of like sometimes the best thing I can do is just be out of the way. And I was spending more time, you know, getting behind you and Julian, and just kind of getting out of the way.
You're a great sideman. You know, you're like
That's the job.
You're like the Australian Shepherd dog of the band.
That is so funny. It is. That's an accurate. Yeah, totally.
You know, when the band's not going the right way, they're kind of drifting. You're like, yep. You run around. You run around the stage. You're like, do this. Come on.
That is so funny. I totally do that.
But when the band is going the way you need to, you just trot alongside.
Yeah, I don't need to do anything here. That is so funny. I don't know. It's more of an instinct. I'm not like thinking. I mean, sometimes I'm like, all right, I see you slacking off. I'm gonna go over and stomp at your feet.
Yeah. Literally, like you make the floor shake. You're like hurting yourself through your Converse, like slamming the floor.
Get it going. I want you to feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show I didn't need to. There was nothing. You know what I mean? Like you guys were running the. You guys just were on top of it from like note one, and it was just like, yeah. I mean, all I need to do is hang out.
Yeah. So more bragging about our successful Petty Nicks gigs, man. I mean,
blah 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 blah. But we did do it, and that is the premise of this podcast. So
yeah, we're talking about our music life. You had a couple of shows.
Oh gosh,
that you didn't play, but they were your students. Like they were shows that you helped craft.
Right. A couple things coming to a head. So one, so I do performance coaching, which has really spread out a bit in terms of one of the things I'm helping with is someone putting together a podcast and
really?
And one of the things that happened this week was a woman in Little Rock, Arkansas. She actually lives in Kansas City, but the show was in Little Rock. And she was doing her first one-woman show, and we put together this one-woman show that consists of piano playing and musical interludes and a couple songs, but largely stories and reminiscences of childhood and kind of growing up in that part of the South and life and all those things. It was just kind of it was literally a one-woman show, a play done by someone who's playing the piano and putting in songs and classical pieces and all kinds of stuff. And apparently that show went great. She had her very first performance the same night we did Stargazers. We'll get to that. No, it was the same night as Buffalo Rose, but we were talking about it. Anyway, apparently it went great. 100-ish people at the show, and she said she got a standing ovation, and people were in tears, and they were coming up to her after the show and just being like, you like took me back to my, and like.
Oh man, that's great. Talk more about how you helped put the show together, like what your role was. How did you help her?
Well, one of the big roles is just being a sounding board, which is being like someone coming with ideas and just sort of being a very sensitive audience to it. Like, show me your thing, and instead of getting it in front of people, get it in front of me, and I'll give you my notes. Not that I'm some, like, whatever final version of it. But then really once we kind of get into it, a lot of what I do is working on the structure of things and where's the flow of the story and it's a lot like we talk about with the Petty Nicks thing. It turns out it's not really that different, where you're trying to make it feel like a movie or like a story, and like here's where we enter the story, and here's where we take our left turn, and here's where we go here, and then we build to the big emotional moment, and then there's the resolution. And so a lot of it is taking that material that this artist already had and helping them shift stuff around in order, so that like, oh, well, if you do it in this order, then it tells the story, and then it has the emotional impact that, and so much of that is about, it's just like set list. So much of that it's about structure. It's like we've talked about with sometimes when you get a standing ovation, it's not that you did that great. It's just that moment in the set is in the exact right moment in the set where just in the flow of energy of the whole night, they want to do that then. And so it's really about, and so in putting a show together like that, it's applying a lot of the basics of stagecraft that we have both worked on and know, but then also it's really working on that, developing that flow and that feeling and that story. And I'm very lucky in that I have whatever thing when a story gets completed or like an emotional arc is formed, like I get the like Bernie nose, like I'm gonna cry thing. And I'm not emotional about it. It's just like it gets me. So
you have a physical reaction.
I have a physical reaction
to a good musical story, or any kind of not musical, any story.
I don't know what it is, but just any story, like you've completed an emotional arc. It's gonna like get me, and I'm not even emotional. Like I'm not feeling anything. I'm just like working on a Zoom call. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? But I can't help get that. So sometimes it's moving stuff around until I start getting that.
That's so interesting.
Sometimes it works. And in this case, I guess it did. So that was really great, especially seeing as how not only was it her first one-woman show of her entire life, the first one she's written or performed or anything. The day before that, they had to shelter in place in fear for their lives from those tornadoes that were in Little Rock.
Gosh.
So they were there a day early to run a dress rehearsal, and they didn't get to do a dress rehearsal because there were terrible tornadoes and everyone had to shelter in place.
Oh, wow.
Apparently not real sure how safe they were.
Wow.
And they did the show the very next night, and it apparently went just fine. Helping people rehearse and helping people
figure out their intros to their stories.
Figure out the intros. Sometimes figure out what's the story. What's the thing that really is moving you here? Like you got this idea, but what really is that? And then all the rehearsal things of practicing. Here's what you need to practice. Here's where I see you slipping up. Here's where I see you excelling. So like lean into that. And then all the dumb things. I mean, like. One of the things we talked about is I've seen people get thrown, and it's such a natural thing, and everybody knows this, but I've never heard anybody talk about it. Like, if you're in front of people, like Anna in New York, who also had a show this week, she had a showcase at the Hard Rock, and we worked on some of her talking stuff, and it apparently went well. Anyway, like, anytime you're in front of a crowd like that, especially a solo type thing, anytime you go to like turn your back or you move or whatever, you're going to get a ripple of coughs and people fidgeting and whatever, because everybody's been trying to be polite and not fidget or cough. So when you turn your attention and you don't really have your attention right on them for a second, everybody's going to go, oh, here's my chance to do this. And for some people, when I know like kind of mentally how sensitive they are about the whole thing, it's just about warning them, like stuff like that. So hey, when you go to make this turn back to the piano after there was a poem recitation thing, and then she was moving back to the piano, I was like, when you go to turn back and your attention is not right on them for a second, you're gonna hear this wave of coughs and stuff.
I had no idea.
And don't let it freak you out, because that's just the natural. You're gonna think like, don't let that be like, oh, they're bored, or oh, they didn't like that, or oh, they whatever. it's sort of like preempting those feelings of like, I know you, we've worked on this. You're going to get freaked out if you hear a bunch of coughs and fidgeting because you're going to go, oh no, they're bored. And I'm warning you, that will happen with any crowd. They've been being polite and sitting still and not coughing and stuff. And then when your attention is gone, they're going to go, oh, here's my chance to and fidget and get a little comfortable again. So you're going to hear this ripple. I mean, yeah.
You're totally right, but I would have never noticed that.
And not everyone needs to know that. I wouldn't tell you that because you wouldn't get flipped by it. But some people would they'd be like, oh no, they're so bored, they're fidgeting. And it's like, no, you just took a minute to walk back to your other place and you're going to hear that in a room. That's just natural. So, I mean, gosh, I guess it's a lot of things. I guess I got way off track there. Whatever. So we covered Anna, her show at Hard Rock in New York. She's doing the jazz trio thing. And that apparently went great. We just, with Anna, she's got her band worked out, she's got her songs worked out, and it was just really working through the stage banter and talking and like, what do you say in between songs. It was a showcase for 500. It was, the Hard Rock in New York is big. It's the one that's like, I can't remember if it's Midtown or it's whatever. But anyway, it was a bunch of event planners from all over the country. And she was kind of showcasing the Hard Rock and whatever. And we just worked on her stage banter and like what to say. And the thing I always do, building some plan A's and some plan B's. So you know what to say if they're paying really close attention to you. You've got your plan A. But hey, if everybody's just kind of chit-chattering or whatever and whatever, then you got your plan B of what to say that's a shorter, just kind of like whatever. So, you know, I mean, that's a lot of it, you know?
Oh, I had a student who performed this morning at Red Rocks.
Oh my gosh, you sure did.
Totally
yeah,
forgot.
We just saw a little bit of that before the...
Yeah, it's Easter today, Easter Sunday, and there's a congregation of churches that gets together. I don't know if it's annual, but I think it might be annual, to do an Easter Sunday service at Red Rocks.
Right.
And she had the solo of Amazing Grace, and she also had a solo in a bridge of a song. And we worked on both vocals and performance. I mean, there's not a lot of performance to do for something like this. I mean, we focused mostly on Amazing Grace, but it's not like Anna or Carla where they're doing a whole show. It's one song. And in addition, this context is not so much about the performer, it's about the song. And so my instructions to her mostly were like, just don't fidget or wander, you know, maybe turn to an angle once, turn to another angle once, and finish in the center. And that's pretty much it. Like, you're being a vehicle for this message this morning. It's not about you. If you make it about you, then, you know, it's selfish.
And very often that's true. I find myself, the more I've done this, the more I'm realizing like how often, you know, kind of in contrast to what you were just saying, like sometimes the opposite is true where you really need to do less and you really just need to let it be about the song. And it's not about performing or, you know, I'm sure I've said it on the podcast. If you feel like you need to dance around a lot to make what you're doing entertaining, then you don't believe in the piece you're performing and you should probably find another piece to perform because you know what I mean? Like if it can't live on its own, and even more in a church service type thing, it's not you, and the more you put on it, the more you're going to take people out of being able to, you know, resonate with that. You know, it's such good advice that you gave her. That's just, you know, you just need to do.
I was so proud of her too. We worked on, and at the end of her solo in the other song, she has a big ad-libby belt phrase.
Right. You showed me part of that.
And she nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sure did. She pulled it up and it was very strong and yeah.
So proud of her.
Yeah. It's been a
couple
lots of stuff
weeks.
going on.
The last thing we haven't talked about yet that we mentioned was playing at Stargazers with Cody.
Yeah.
So first time there.
And gosh, we do want to mention that because we want to thank John at Stargazers for just the warmest treatment.
Yes.
I mean,
what a great owner.
Yeah, just a wonderful person. Stargazers is, I guess it maybe was a planetarium. but now it's a dinner theater. It's a huge dome one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't know if it literally was.
I think it used to be. I think that's what I heard.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a dinner theater type place. It's bigger than Boulder Dinner Theater, but it's like a, and they of course mainly have concerts there, but it's got the nice kind of riser stadium, not risers, but terrace, whatever.
Yeah.
Levels and, great sound. Dan Buckley was there running sound, so it was great to see him.
And that morning we did a video shoot with Cody. Oh my gosh. What a busy couple of weeks.
It's unbelievable we forgot that. So we did, the morning of Stargazers, show up in Colorado Springs, which is an hour and a half, hour 15 away from us. We had an 8:30 call. And we shot some promo video with Cody, Cody.
Yeah, at Production Point, which is where Dan has his recording studio there.
Right.
Dan Buckley does.
And it is a massive...
Oh my gosh.
TV, video, audio, anything you can think of, production.
The stage was huge. The LED screen in the back was enormous.
Enormous, and just looked like, on film, it just looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
It just looks like a movie. And when we say huge, we meant the entire band could drive our cars into the warehouse. Like, they have enough,
with plenty of room to spare. I mean...
Plenty of room. This is just
you could
massive.
put a fleet of trucks in there.
And they apparently were shooting some stuff for Fox there the week before we were there. So hopefully that's Colorado Springs getting a little on the map, doing some, they are running a pro facility down there. How did you feel about the video shoot?
Oh, fine, good. It was fun. It was easy. It was a lot easier than I expected.
It was a lot easier.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we did not record sound live, because that would have been...
Right, we were doing the classic, music video style.
Yeah, we were just capturing video. It's going to be synced
gonna
up
be
with
synced
existing audio.
Yeah.
So we weren't even plugged in. I was just looking like I was playing, and we were focused more on when we're going to jump and when we're going to turn, and
which was great. And it was, it's fun. It's fun either way. I mean, I was probably a little out of it because I was already... Oh, that was actually the night. I don't know if I slept or not because I was so worried about oversleeping that I was having that thing going on where, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I thought I was just laying there worrying about waking up on time the whole time. Anyway, there's fun in... When we did the video shoot with Kyle at Digital Mile, and that was the outdoor snow shoot and everything, and he shot and shot and shot. And there's something fun to that grind of, we're just going to do it, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it, and you got to bring the energy, and you got to, you're not really in the shot, but you got to, keep acting like you are.
You might be in the background of the shot,
Just in case you're in the corner, you can't just be standing there, and at Production Point, they were not shooting a ton of takes.
No.
And that was, fun in a different way, because it was just go
go for it for one or two takes. And then we're changing outfits and set and moving on. So anyway, gosh, busy 2 weeks. We told it all out of order, but I think we told all of it. For everyone who's so curious how we spend our time. I mean, I guess we're pulling lessons out like we try to. So hopefully it's a bit educational as well.
Yeah.
Who's our sponsor?
Of course, it's Performance High.
Performance High Voice and Music Studio. And, oh my gosh, so many options.
Oh, man. It's been a heck of a week. Who could we use... Sorry, not who could we use as a sponsor. Who has been a sponsor? So many people give us money, it's hard to remember. It's just a lot of companies.
Well, there's Production Point.
We're sponsored by Production Point.
No, we're not. Or Stargazers. Yeah. Stargazers Theater. I don't know.
Who knows? We are, let's be accurate. We are constantly sponsored by all of the fine people in Colorado who help put on music shows, audio, video, all the things that everybody does. Thanks, guys. If you keep sending the checks, I'll keep cashing them. So
they're sending you checks? Yeah. All right, see you next week.